Hello my quilting friends! My name is Leah Day and welcome to this tutorial on creating Dresden plate number 7, our mix and match Dresden. For this block you will need 2 colors of blue fabric, and these are cut 3.5 by 10, so 3.5 by 10 inch rectangles, 1 strip of blue, and this is 3 inches by 21. You're going to need the Dresden template number 2, number 5, and a turning template created for template number 2. Finally, our background square, just like all of the other Dresden plates we've made this year, this is cut a little bit big at 13 to 14 inches. It's going to give us some room to play, and then we'll be able to trim it down to 12.5 inches when we're ready to put our quilt top together. Now let's cut out our petals. Using Dresden template number 2, I'm going to line up the 2 mark on the edge of my strip, and I'm going to cut out 2 petals from each color of blue. So we'll end up with a total of 4 petals, 2 in each color. Now, whenever cutting with curves especially, be very mindful of where your rotary cutter is and where your fingers are. As I go around, I like to rotate this so that way I can create a nice smooth movement both with my arm and with my body. Rotate slightly. I might want to move those. I just recently had another rotary cutter accident, guys, and I'm being a lot more careful because that was no fun. So keep rotating around and always cut with the rotary cutter in your dominant hand. There we go, that's 1 petal cut. And then now to save fabric, this is just a little bit tight for you. You can rotate it so that way you just waste a little bit less by doing it that way. That looks good. Lining up that 2 mark on the template with the bottom edge of that strip. And you see that we have extra fabric here to the top. That's intentional. We cut the strips just a little bit wide. That way we have plenty of room around that curve so that we can cut and create that curve nicely. Now let's cut out our smaller petals, and these are going to be cut out of our yellow fabric, that 3-inch strip. And I am using Dresden template number 5, and again I'm going to line up that 2 mark on the template with the bottom edge of the strip, and the top edge of the strip should come out right along the edge of that template too. So just like so. And again, we're going to make 1 cut with our dominant hand and then rotate it around and make sure our template didn't shift on the fabric. I have true grips here, guys. That's the little donut-y things on my templates, and that really helps to stop the template from shifting and sliding on your fabric. There we go. So that's how I'm going to cut out all of those. You need a total of 8 petals cut out of your yellow fabric. Now let's prep our curved petals. We're going to need that turning template. You can create this. I've shared many videos on creating turning templates, and the actual shape is included in your Dresden template set. So I'm going to place this on the petal that we've cut, the blue petals, and I'm just looking at where the straight edges of the petal line up with those straight edges on the fabric. And you're going to notice that you have about 1/2 inch or so of extra fabric here to the top of that turning template, and that's the right way. That's the way it should look. Now we're going to give this a press. This is cut out of freezer paper, so that way it's going to stick to our fabric, and now we can easily turn that edge. I have a little bit of spray starch sprayed into a cap here, and I'm just going to use a paintbrush to paint this right along the edge of that turning template. Grab a pair of tweezers and pull the fabric over. Now I'm using a hot, dry iron. This is an iron that doesn't have holes in it, so it cannot have water in it. It doesn't have steam, and I like that because the holes will often catch on applique. It will often catch on your fabric and cause some problems. We don't need any steam for this project. So I'm just going to work my way around, just painting on a little bit of starch right along that edge, keeping it under control. We don't want to just take starch and just spray it like crazy over the fabric. That's going to result in too much liquid and we're going to lose control over it, and it's going to cause the edge of the turning template to soften and no longer give us a nice crisp edge. Now it looks like I need just a little bit right there. That's not folding over nicely. So anytime you see the fabric just not wanting to behave, a little bit more starch and a little bit more heat is the answer. And don't worry, all of the starch washes right out of your fabric the first time you wash your quilt. Okay, now that that is turned, I'm going to trim down that fabric so that it is only about 1/4 of an inch extending beyond that fold. There we go. That looks great. And then now I'm going to carefully peel the fabric off of the freezer paper. There we go. You might have to reshape it just a little bit, press it back down onto your firm pressing board, and then give it another press. All right, now we need to finish that bottom edge, and I'm just going to fold that up. This is just a straight edge turning template here. I'm going to fold that over to reach that line. That line's just marked 1/4 inch from the edge, and I'm just folding the edge of the fabric over to reach that line, and I'm going to give it another press. And I often find just folding it over and pressing it nicely is usually enough, but if you really feel like it needs it, you could run a little bit of starch along that line too. But there we go. That is how you're going to prep up all of your curved petals. So now let's prep up our yellow petals. These are cut with Dresden template number 5. You should have 8 of them, and what we're going to do is we're just going to fold the top and bottom edges over 1/4 of an inch. So here I'm working on that bottom edge first, and I just use that same turning template. This is just a doubled piece of freezer paper cut about 1 inch wide, and then I marked a straight line 1/4 inch from one edge, and I'm just folding that fabric over to reach that line and then giving it a good press. And again, if you want to, you can also apply starch with your paintbrush the exact same way. In this case, this is pressing so nicely, I don't think I need to. So go on ahead and prep up all 8 of your yellow petals exactly that way. Now it's time to piece our petals together. We're going to start with a curved petal in the center, and we're going to piece 2 of our smaller yellow petals on both sides. So once I press my seam allowance open, it's good to take a look at it and make sure that it's not doing anything weird. And I noticed on these straight edge petals, it is extending. You can see that little flag of seam allowance that's extending beyond the edge of that straight edge petal. So what I do here is I open the seam allowance, I do a little corner fold. It's just a little triangle fold, very, very tiny. I know it's hard to see, especially with yellow fabric. I fold that over, and you can see here on this other side too, it's just that little fold, and that stops the seam allowance from extending beyond the edge of that petal. If you need to, grab your paintbrush, little dab of starch right there can help crisp that up a little bit and help it encourage it to fold over. So that is how I'm going to handle the seam allowances. I'm going to go ahead and piece all of these together, having the curved petal in the center and 2 of our straight edge petals on both sides. So I pieced my Dresden petals together in those sets of 3, then I pieced those sets of 3 together, and I made sure to put those alternate colors of blue on opposite sides. I think that looks really nice. Now there's lots of ways that you could set this on your background. I kind of like this, but you could go with the seam lines through the middle. That kind of makes it look like almost like it's turning. And you could also do it this way with those straight edge petals coming out too. So it's totally up to you, but I kind of like the idea of the curved petals in the center. So what you want to do is just center this up nicely, give it a press, and then I use Elmer's glue. This is just Elmer's school glue in my micro tip glue bottle, and that helps me control the flow of the glue as I could get it down on all of these edges. We need to glue the inside edges as well as the outside edges. So that is it for Dresden number 7. This was kind of our mix and match Dresden. We did some 16 petal and some 8 petal together, and I think this turned out great. If you'd like to join in the fun and make lots of Dresden plates with me, come and check out the Dresden template set. You can find it at leahday.com/Dresden.